All right, and it appears that we're back, that it seems to be working now. So we're at the 8-minute session. So essentially what I'm going to do for those of you who have endured is carry on with the presentation and see if we can get this thing working for you and give you some information about getting your driver's license. Now, as I was saying in the introduction, that may or may not be part of the live stream here that we'll record on YouTube. Social driving is essentially what you're going to be doing after you get your license. 2 hands on the steering wheel, driving the speed limit, following at the proper distance from other traffic, staying away from fixed objects and other traffic and road users and whatnot. And for the purposes of a road test, all of that is required, that you have to do that. Social driving, you have to unfortunately work against the forces of social driving, because there is a lot of pressure in driving, because it is an exercise, a social exercise, and you are pressured by other vehicles and other drivers on the roadway to move and do certain things and be predictable, and that pressure is really, really strong in some cases. So you're gonna have to work against social driving. And when I teach people how to drive and I do demonstrations in the car, I have to work against social driving as well, because when I get in the car and I'm not teaching people how to drive, I drive with one hand on the steering wheel, I drive above the speed limit, and I follow too close. So social driving has a great deal of impact and force on me as well. So know that social driving is going to have a great deal of impact on you when you're learning how to drive. Now, getting into the video, or getting into the presentation here on how to get a driver's license. Just quickly here. So getting a driver's license, I am Rick August. I'm the chief driving instructor with Smart Drive Test. As you can see, there's a lot of videos on YouTube about getting a driver's license and how to do that. The first thing I'm going to say about getting a driver's license is that you're going to have to get a learner's license, and I talked about that in the introduction, that there's 2 phases of the GLP program, the graduated licensing program. One is the learner's phase and the other is the novice phase. Get your learners as soon as possible, because most of the learner phases are 1 year in duration, and the sooner you can get that clock ticking to wind down that 1 year, the faster you're going to get into your novice phase and be able to drive by yourself. So start the clock ticking as soon as possible. Go in and write your learners as quickly as possible. The internet is full of practice driving test questions, and there are practice driving test questions on my website that you can go and do, and all of the practice driving test questions on Smart Drive Test have feedback and will give you feedback. Do not use these practice driving tests as a measure of your ability. Rather, use them as a learning tool to learn the questions that you're going to be asked on a driver's license test. And the questions are more or less the same across different jurisdictions and different authorities. So just use them as a learning tool, and if you don't understand something or get the question wrong, then go back to the driver's manual and look up the specific part that you got wrong, because driver's manuals are incredibly boring. They're written by bureaucrats and they are not very interesting. So use the practice driving test questions as a learning tool. The GLP program, the learner's phase, you have to have a mentor with you in the vehicle. You cannot drive by yourself. In most cases, there are restrictions on who the mentor can be. Sometimes they have to have a certain amount of driving experience. It can be 2 to 5 years. They have to be 25 years old. And there can be other restrictions. So wherever you are, if you're in British Columbia, it's ICBC. If you're in Ontario, it's the Ministry of Transportation. If it's in the United States, it's the Department of Transport. If you're in Australia, it's Vic Roads. If you're in the state of Victoria, if you're in New South Wales, it's a different authority. Europe, whoever the authority is, just go on their website and all of this information will be readily available. In the learner's phase as well, there oftentimes are going to be passenger restrictions of who you can have in the vehicle. In some cases, it will be restricted to immediate family, mom, dad, siblings, grandpa and grandma. Other times, there won't be any restrictions in terms of who are the passengers on the vehicle. In your learner's phase, you're going to have a 0 blood alcohol. You cannot have any alcohol in your system whatsoever. Cell phone restrictions, you can neither have a hands-free or a handheld device in the vehicle. You can't drive at night. Oftentimes these GLP programs will preclude you from driving between midnight and 5 a.m. And again, all of these conditions will be on the website of the authority where you're going to go and get your license. And I know in Ontario and perhaps other jurisdictions as well, they have restrictions on freeways that you can't drive on. For example, you can't drive on the 401 in Ontario or drive on the QEW, the Queen Elizabeth Expressway, and unless you're with a licensed driving instructor. So those are some of the restrictions that you're going to face in a learner's program. And then in the novice phase, again, you have passenger restrictions. You can only have one other passenger in the vehicle for the most part. Cell phone use, you cannot use handheld or hands-free devices in the vehicle. Zero blood alcohol, harsher penalties for speeding and other traffic infractions, no night driving. And those are the restrictions for the novice phase. And oftentimes the novice phase is 2 years. And then you have to do another practical road test to graduate and get your full license. And once you get to a full license, once you get to that road test where you have to do to go for your full license, they expect you to have a fair bit of experience by this point because you've been driving for 2 years. So the bar is a lot higher in terms of the road test that you're going to undertake to get your full license. The knowledge test that you have to take to get your learners, it's multiple choice. Oftentimes it's 4 answers, 40 to 100 questions. And again, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. And there's a video here on the channel, and I'll put the link down in the description for you about how to do a multiple choice test and what I mean by pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. So for example, picking the best answer of a multiple choice question is a question about 4-way stops. Who has the right of way at a 4-way stop? Is it the first person to arrive, the person on the right, the person in the intersection, or the biggest vehicle? So those are your 4 choices. And obviously the answer to the question is going to be the vehicle in the intersection. The other 2 answers are right. The first person to arrive and the vehicle on the right are both right answers, but they're not the best answer. The best answer is the vehicle in the intersection, because you're not going to run into that vehicle in the intersection. The knowledge test is going to cover anything that's in the driver's manual for your jurisdiction. It's going to cover signs, signals, road markings. It's going to cover right of way. It's going to cover terminology in terms of driving, complex intersections, controlled intersections, intersections. There's a difference between a controlled intersection and an intersection. A controlled intersection is an intersection that is controlled by signs or lights, and those signs will be yield signs or stop signs and lights. Painted islands, you have to know those types of terminology. You have to know the difference between yellow road markings in North America as opposed to white road markings. Those are different in North America and will give you different information. And that information is that yellow road markings in North America divide traffic going in opposite directions, and white road markings divide traffic going in the same direction. So if you've got white line markings, they're going in the same direction, and sometimes it will tell you that you're on a one-way street. Now that's not the same in other countries, so know that for sure. Right of way is a big issue on a road test, and you need to know who has the right of way. Now, just in terms of right of way, one of my favorite sayings about right of way is the right of way is never taken. The right of way is always given. Unless somebody gives you the right of way, you don't have the right of way, even if you legally have the right of way. So again, it comes down to you can be right or you can be dead right. Finally, the driving task, and these are the 6 components that are in constant flux while you're driving in the dynamic driving environment, which are the vehicle, the driver, road, traffic, light, and weather. And those are the 6 driving tasks. And again, there's another video on the driving task here on the YouTube channel that you can have a look at. Now, when you go for a road test in vehicle, not your theory road test, but in the vehicle road test, this is for the novice phase of your road test. The 4 basic components of any road test anywhere in the world are going to be speed and space management. Can you control speed? Can you control space? And observation and communication. These are the 4 fundamental components of any road test for any class of license anywhere in the world. So speed, there are not necessarily you're going to drive the posted speed limit. If you look at the mock road test videos here on the channel, you're going to see, if you look at the speedo cam, I rarely get to the posted speed limit. So The speeds that you're going to travel are the posted speed limit or the flow of traffic, whichever is less. If you're driving a commercial vehicle or a bigger vehicle that may not go up a hill at the posted speed limit, then you're going to drive the capability of the vehicle. Space management, are you going to stay away from other traffic, other road users, and have a good margin of safety around your vehicle while you're driving? So that's speed and space management. And then observation, plenty of shoulder checking. On a road test, you simply can't shoulder check enough. Anytime that you move the vehicle laterally, you're going to have to shoulder check. You're going to have to do a 360-degree scan before you execute any of your slow speed maneuvers, and you're going to have to communicate effectively with other traffic via your lights, your signals, appropriate hand gestures. Telling other drivers that they're number one is not an appropriate hand gesture, particularly on a road test, and a driving examiner would take a very dim view to telling the other driver that he or she is number one. Requirements of a road test: you will have to do slow speed maneuvers. The slow speed maneuvers will consist of anything of parallel parking, 3-point turns, 2-point reverse turns, stall parking, U-turns. All of this is here on the channel about the specific steps to learn how to do these slow speed maneuvers. And as I said in the introduction, which may or may not be on the video because we had some difficulty with getting the video to stream, that slow speed maneuvers are going to teach you how to drive. They're going to teach you speed and space management of the vehicle. They're going to teach you response of the primary controls of the vehicle. And again, the primary controls are the throttle, the brake, the steering wheel. If you're driving a manual transmission, it's going to be the clutch as well. So you're going to learn how to use the primary controls of the vehicle. And as I said, take the time, spend the time in a parking lot or another closed circuit area where you can do slow speed maneuvers and learn how to drive, because these slow speed maneuvers are going to improve and translate into all of your driving. I cannot stress this enough. Go into a parking lot, go down to your local rental shop and hire some pylons, the 36-inch tall pylons, and go out to a parking lot and practice slow speed maneuvers. Just go out, put the pylons up, try and back up on either side of them, drive forward, drive around in circles, forward figure eights and reverse figure eights. And when you can do all of that, again, watch the video on basic fundamentals of driving. The 2x4, you can lay that down on the ground and try and drive over it with one set of wheels and then the other set of the wheels. So that'll translate into all of your driving and make you a better driver. So some of the specific skills and techniques that you need for a road test: you have to have two hands on the steering wheel at all times. And if you look at some of my videos, you're going to laugh because I tend to talk with my hands and I struggle with keeping two hands on the steering wheel. Stopping in traffic: when you stop in traffic, you have to stop behind other vehicles so you can see the vehicle in front of you, its tires making clear contact with the pavement. So that's the correct stopping position. And there's several defensive moves which are the reason for doing that, but essentially you're about a car length back, and it's good defensive posturing. You have to know the correct stopping position at intersections, particularly stop sign intersections. There are 3 stopping positions at stop sign intersections: at the stop line, before the crosswalk, before the sidewalk, or where the two roads meet. Those are the 3 different stopping positions at stop sign intersections. And you're going to have to learn how to deal with yellow lights, especially if you're coming up on it, whether you can get stopped or not. And the basic rule for yellow lights: if it turns yellow as you're approaching the intersection, if you're within 1 vehicle length, regardless of what class of license you are, 1 vehicle length, the vehicle cannot stop in its own length. So if you're farther than 1 vehicle length from the intersection when it turns yellow, you have to get on the brakes and stop. And sometimes that's going to be a very aggressive stop. You need to know the difference between controlled and uncontrolled intersections, because oftentimes driving examiners are going to say, at the next intersection, turn right. At the controlled intersection, turn left. And essentially what they're doing is using language that determines if you, who are being tested on the road test, whether you can determine what kind of intersection you're dealing with and how to deal with that intersection, and whether it's a controlled or uncontrolled intersection. And just repeating what I said at the beginning, a controlled intersection is a yield sign, stop sign, or traffic lights. And then the other part that you have to demonstrate on a road test is who has the right of way, and whether you can give the right of way, and whether you can go when you need to go, determining gap and safe margin of space and those types of things. Mentors. For the learners phase of your license, you're going to have a mentor. That mentor is going to be parents. It's going to be families, uncles, aunts, some cousins, or friends who are going to help you to drive. Now, it's a fair commitment of time, so know that, and as well, the more practice you get in your learner's phase, the better you're going to be overall, because you need to be exposed to a wide cross-section of driving environments and weather environments. So at nighttime, in the rain, and inclement weather, anytime that you can get behind the wheel and drive, it's going to make you a better driver overall. So not just to and from a destination, to and from the grocery shop every now and again, every week. Just get in the vehicle and drive as much as you can. And the more exposure you get to different vehicles, different driving environments, the better it's going to be overall. So try and pick your mentors. And again, I'll put a link down in the description box on the video here. There is a booklet on the website for mentors, people who are learning how to drive, that will help you to mentor a new driver. And again, there's a video here on the channel as well about helping a new driver learn how to drive, and some tips and techniques that you can implement to help to facilitate a new driver's learning how to drive. Driving lessons. If you are not going to take driving lessons and you're going to learn how to drive on your own, all great. But one of the exercises that I advocate for new drivers, in the weeks before you go for your road test, go and hire a local driving school and get them to take you for a mock road test. They will be able to identify weaknesses in your driving or things that you need to improve before you can go for a road test. You have to understand that driving instructors teach new students how to pass a road test. They do it every day, and they're very good at it, and they know exactly what driving examiners are looking for, so they can pinpoint weaknesses in your driving ability and suggest that you do more of this. So for example, if you're not shoulder checking enough, or you're not shoulder checking the right way, they can indicate that you need to shoulder check more, or you're not signaling early enough. Those types of things. Driving examiners can indicate that and give you feedback so that you can improve your driving and be better prepared for a road test. Now, what I'll say about road tests, it's better to spend a bit of money and invest a bit of money to get a driving instructor to give you that kind of feedback, because if you go for your road test and you're not successful, it takes a while to build your self-confidence back up, and it's easier to spend a bit of money and a bit of time before you go for your road test than it is to try rebuild your self-confidence. So be prepared and be well prepared before you go and show up for your road test. Finally, practice, practice, practice. I've already talked about this. Different vehicles, different driving environments, as much driving as you can get. The more you practice, the better driver you're going to be, and the more comfortable you're going to be in different driving situations, because on the road test, they're going to test you in different driving environments. They're going to test you in suburban areas, residential areas, mid-traffic density areas. They're going to test you at complex intersections. You're going to do backing and slow speed maneuvers and parallel parking. So the more practice you get, the more comfortable you're going to be doing your road test. And remember, we do what we practice. So if you're nervous on the day of your road test, you're going to demonstrate your ability to drive better even with nerves, because we do what we practice when we get under stress. So if you've had lots of driving practice, it's going to negate the nerves that you're going to feel on road test day. Road test day. Get a good night's sleep the night before your road test. Make sure you bring documentation. You need 2 pieces of identification, and I often encourage students to bring 3 just in case they don't accept one. If you wear glasses for the purposes of driving, make sure you bring your glasses. If it's sunny or it's summertime or it's the wintertime and it's sunny, make sure you bring your sunglasses as well. I know that some driving instructors will say that you cannot wear sunglasses on a road test. That's simply not true, and I simply don't advocate that. I would rather have you wearing a pair of sunglasses in sunny weather than squinting and trying to be able to see. So make sure you bring your sunglasses as well. And if a driving instructor tells you that, it's just malarkey. As my mom said, tell them to go pound salt. Anyway, and make sure you bring money, because road tests are not free. There is a cost for taking a road test. It's $50 or $60. I don't know the exact cost, but again, it'll be on the website of the Driving Authority. When you show up at the authority, make sure you back into the parking stall. And again, there's a video here on reverse stall parking. Have a look at that, because when you're starting your road test, you're just too nervous. You don't want to be backing out of the parking stall. You want to drive out of the parking stall. And again, make sure when you drive out of the parking stall that you signal left or right, depending on which way the examiner indicates for you to go, because you have to signal every time you move the vehicle laterally. Keep going until you're told to stop. On the day of your road test, make sure that you keep going until you're told to stop. If you make a mistake, don't say, oh my God, I made a mistake. Just ignore it, because the examiner may not even have seen it. If your driving ability is high and you're doing really well in terms of the 4 components of your road test: speed and space management, observation, and communication, the driving examiner may just negate it, especially if it's a minor infraction. For example, you drive up and you park along the curb and you scrub the curb. They may just overlook that. If you do well in every other component of the road test, they're just going to overlook that. So just keep going until the examiner tells you to stop, or you get back to the road test area and you back into the parking space, then stop. And all you have to do for the purposes of a road test, and I tell students this again and again, you just have to take away the examiner's right to fail you. You have to demonstrate that you are a competent driver. And if you've practiced and done the work, you're going to be able to do that really well. So good luck on your road test. I'll just finish up here with a conclusion. So good luck on your road test. I think that ends up the presentation here. And again, just make sure that you get plenty of practice, do your slow speed maneuvers, take the time to do the work that you need to do to be prepared for your road test. And again, just reiterating, on your learner's test, get your learner's license as soon as possible, even if you're not going to practice, even if you're not going to start working on learning how to drive, because you need to get that clock ticking over as soon as possible. And the sooner you get that clock ticking over, the faster you're going to be able to move on to your novice phase of your license, and you're going to be able to drive by yourself. And you can stop pestering your parents and your friends and your family to borrow the car and go for a drive. So get your learner's license as soon as possible, get that clock ticking over, and then that way you can wind that down and move on to the novice stage. When you show up for your road test, again, the 4 basic components for the road test are speed and space management. And then the speed limit is the posted speed limit, the flow of traffic, or the capability of the vehicle, whichever is less. So you need to get the vehicle up to the posted speed limit as quickly as possible. If there's any traffic around or any conditions in the road environment that are going to preclude you from doing the speed limit, get the vehicle up to speed as quickly as possible. For example, if you're out on a main highway and it's a multi-lane highway and the speed limit's 60 kilometers an hour or 40 miles an hour in the States, get the vehicle up to speed as quickly as possible. Don't dawdle, and don't exceed the speed limit either. You're allowed a little bit of over, but get it back to the posted speed limit as soon as possible. And as well, monitor your speed limit, or the speed of the vehicle, because you can get caught up with other traffic, because you can be guaranteed that the traffic flow of other traffic is going faster than what the posted speed limit is. So just monitor your speed well on the day of your road test. Communication, observation, make sure you do 360-degree scans, you're doing lots of shoulder checks, and you have that scanning pattern, and look farther down the road so you can anticipate traffic patterns. And that will show in your ability to drive. And the other thing that you can do, one of the other tips I will give students, is do a running commentary. A lot of students call it talking to themselves. No, you're not crazy. If you're doing a running commentary, especially on your road test, the driving examiner knows what you're looking at, knows what you're thinking. So if you're not moving your head as much as you are, but you can see, because oftentimes in order to move your head to do the scanning that driving instructors oftentimes want you to do it, you have to exaggerate your movements. Whereas if you're doing a running commentary, the driving examiner doesn't have to guess what you're doing. He or she can simply hear what you're looking at and what you're seeing. So that's really good, and it also helps to calm your nerves, and it communicates to the driving examiner what you're doing. So that's another way that you can facilitate passing your road test. Observation, communication, so you have to communicate, you have to signal well, use of lights, and hand gestures, appropriate hand gestures. Don't be telling other drivers that they're number one, especially on a road test. Do not show any signs of aggression on a road test. and all of the traffic rules, right of way and yielding to other traffic, particularly pedestrian traffic. And you have to give one lane of traffic between you and pedestrian traffic, your vehicle and pedestrian traffic. And again, there's a video here on the channel that you can watch in terms of pedestrian traffic and whatnot. So watch all of that, watch the videos, get the information that you need for the purposes of passing your road test, and good luck in your road test. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Rick with Smart Drive Test. Good luck in your license, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now.